This is Wise and Nerdy, where fatherhood meets fandom, baby.
Even when Charles isn't here, he still gets his voice on. I've said this in the past, but he has a bunch of different intros where the voice is done by different people.
Mm-hmm.
He only gave me the one with him. So when he's out, that's the only one I have. So on his end, he can randomize it. And I think he's delaying giving those to me if he ever does, specifically so that his voice is still on the podcast.
His presence will always be there. He can say that he's a part of every single episode of Wise and Nerdy.
Yep. Oh man. Before we get going, I wanted to do a follow-up, and I'll give you to some context for this because it was on a previous episode. I shared a story about how my sister was the victim of a hit and run accident where a teenager had stolen a car, or a group of teenagers had stolen a car, ran an intersection, T-boned her, crashed into a tree, and then ran away. Okay. Well, as of, let's see, 40 minutes ago, my sister sent a message to my family's group chat saying that the person driving has now been apprehended. So,
good. That's good.
Not that it'll probably mean anything for her insurance or anything like that, but it's nice to see that they were caught.
A little bit of justice, if nothing else.
Yep.
Yeah.
So anyway, as everyone can hear, I don't have any other male voices here, so I would love for you two to introduce yourselves to our audience. So Sarah,
well, I am Shannon.
Shannon, go ahead and start.
Hi, I am Shannon. I am the host and producer for Earth Station Boo, which is a horror podcast. I am a emotional support human for animals, and I just love talking nerdy. So here to have a good time.
And I am Sarah Rose. I am what I call a geek of many colors because I have interests in just about anything you can put your finger on. I've dabbled in it. I primarily right now my primary interest is theater. I run a DragonCon Theater and Performing Arts Lovers Unofficial. But I am a huge pet person, animal person. I have 3 cats. I have had bunnies, hamsters, gerbils. Live vicariously through my high school best friend who had donkeys. So I am a big animal person. Went to horse camp for like a good decade. I mean, just
now you say
all in all.
Donkeys. How many donkeys? Like, did they breed donkeys?
They had at the highest. They had 13 donkeys. They were miniature donkeys.
That's a lot of donkeys.
They were donkeys. Yeah.
Random kid in the chat said rainbow geek is what they mean. So you said you were a geek of many colors. I guess they have now labeled you a rainbow geek.
I would call myself a rainbow geek. That's probably a good term for me. Yeah. The reason I use it is because I am a huge fan of the Wizard of Oz and the horse of many colors. So
yep, there you go. That is a horse of a different color. All right, let's go ahead and start off with. Well, maybe I should unmute my soundboard.
Question of the week.
And the question of the week this week is: if you could have any fictional vehicle for your daily commute, what would it be?
Ooh, this is a good question. Mine would be Baby. And that would be a 67 Chevy Impala from Supernatural.
It took me a minute.
Ooh.
Right when you started it, I was like, baby, what's baby? I should know baby. Charles would have been all over that. He loves Supernatural. That would be an awesome car to have.
Right? It's gorgeous. Plus, you don't have to worry about all like the computer, like crazy mumbo jumbo. And if you get the actual baby from the show, it comes with everything you need to survive an apocalypse. So we're good.
That's true. That's very true.
I was actually thinking the magic school bus would be cool.
Okay.
You know,
That's cool.
it can go all sorts of places, you know. Can shrink down or fly. It can do all the things, get me right over the commute traffic. You know, that's kind of my thing. And you know, all my friends can fit on board as well. So yeah, I think the
Yeah,
magic school bus. So
That is also a good one. Now
that is a good one.
I have some serious restrictions for mine since I work in my basement. And so I'm trying to think of what counts as a vehicle that my commute would fulfill, since my commute is just down a set of stairs. So my first thought was the carpet from Aladdin.
oh,
That
carpet would
Okay.
be awesome. Yeah.
because then I get a vehicle and a friend.
Mm-hmm.
So, but if I was still going to the office, my other thought was maybe Herbie from Herbie Fully Loaded,
Oh
or from.
yeah.
Would be fun.
I mean,
Yeah.
then I could take a nap and just let him drive.
I
Plus, if
mean, there's
anyone's
also the
gonna,
TARDIS.
yeah,
TARDIS is a good one too. Yeah. Except I
Yeah.
wouldn't want to leave. I would be like, this is awesome. Nobody can find me. I'm disguised. I'm, you know,
yep. You
it
could
can
get
You
bring
can
the
me
go to all
back
the
to
places.
the weekend all over again, you know.
yeah, you could get the flying car from Harry Potter, the Ford Anglia.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Although it might need some work. It has a tendency
Yeah,
to be a
I was
little
gonna
faulty.
say, are we talking about before it got crashed into the Whomping Willow, or
Yeah.
and
I mean,
went
it still technically
feral?
worked after it got crushed.
It's infested by spiders, you know, big spiders, so maybe
Yeah,
not.
Yeah.
yeah. So, yeah, so there are a lot of good choices. We didn't have anybody call in this week to provide any answers, but if you wanted to post-humorously provide your answer, you can head on over to wisenerdy.com/call dad, and you can leave us a voice message with what your answer would be, what vehicle you would like to have. But let's go ahead and
Roll that dice.
to figure out where we're gonna go with this. All right.
How do I?
All right. So the how do I for tonight is, how do I choose the right pet for my family's lifestyle? So, out
Ooh,
of all the
that's
different
a good
pets that you
one.
could have and all the different lifestyles you could have, there you got to find that Venn diagram. So, what advice would you have for of different lifestyles for a pet that they should have?
Well,
I'd
I
say
think.
find a
Go ahead.
okay. Um, as somebody who like my actual job is I go and I take care of other people's pets for them. Um, one of the things that I find with a lot of them is they didn't realize how active like their dogs were or how isolating their cats were. They didn't really
Mhm.
understand the personality and the common characteristics of their animals. So when you're going to get a pet, whatever kind of pet it is, think about your lifestyle and what you're willing to sacrifice and change for the needs of that animal. So be it like a dog. A lot of people are liking the doodles right now. Well, doodles are high energy.
Mhm.
They are a mix of a poodle. Poodles are high energy dogs. They can also used to be trained for guard work. So they are very
Mhm.
like active animals and they need constant stimulation. They're very smart. So if you're not keeping that dog stimulated or exercised, that's when it's going to start tearing
Mhm.
up your furniture. That's when it's going to start getting into things. So keeping in mind, like, are you going to be able to give it the amount of exercise it needs? Are you able to give it the toys and other like things to keep it stimulated? If you can't,
Mhm.
find a less needy breed or a different
Mhm.
type of animal.
Now, what's the other
You
half
know,
of
a
the
cat might,
doodle?
yeah.
What's the other half of the doodle?
You
A
know,
poodle and a dachshund,
it
or
it depends. It depends. There's golden doodles, there's labradoodles, there's um, Bernese mountain dog poodle mixes. There people are just kind of
okay,
mixing poodles with
just
a
poodle
lot of different
mixes.
breeds.
Okay,
Yeah, doodle
Mhm.
mixes as a whole are
Mhm.
popular right now. So yeah, it's just kind
okay.
of
Yeah.
being wise of like
Mhm.
stereotypically, what does this animal need? And do I have the lifestyle that fits this animal's needs?
Yeah.
Yes. Well, I mean, a good friend of mine, several years ago, moved out to the country and he's like, I can finally get a dog again. And he got an Australian Shepherd, but
Hmm.
he worked so much and the dog just it was an escape artist and it would
They
get
are.
out and running around and like because it was like a
Hmm.
herding dog it would
Yeah.
he lived down in the middle of the country and it would go and it would chase people's animals and chase
Hmm.
cars and everything else and like he ended up having to rehome his dog and I know that that killed him but it was like he just did not have the lifestyle
Hmm.
to have this young, very energetic, very active dog.
Hmm.
Um, I would say, in general, like I love all animals. I love dogs. But I am primarily a cat person. I own 3 cats. Um, but when I was a kid, um, it was the the animals that I had, we had 2 cats when I was real young, but I would always get the little animals, whether that be guinea pigs or rabbits. My very
Hmm.
first pet that was mine was a parakeet named, Tweety. Um, and the thing I would
Very fitting.
say about yes. Um uh, thing I would say is those seem really appealing to a lot of uh, people and parents and families because they're small and they can put them in the cage and stuff like that. But those animals, they need just as much stimulation and just as much
Hmm.
work as as other types of animals. And the other thing is those animals, if they get sick, if they get hurt, they're going to actually cost you more to take care of because they're
Yeah.
considered exotic pets. Um, so, like, you bring, not every vet will take care of a guinea pig or a bunny.
Hmm.
Birds, you have to either give them room to fly and explore and take them out of the cage and stuff like that. And if you don't want them to fly, you have to go and you have to professionally get their wings trimmed so that they can't fly. And that's a whole nother like discussion on whether or not you should even do
Yeah,
that.
an
And
ethical
Yeah.
um
discussion.
and sure, something like a turtle, it seems harmless, but that turtle can, live for well over a decade. A tortoise,
Yeah.
the tortoise can live over 100 years, like depending on the breed. Like
Hmm.
these are these are long-term commitments, even if they're small. So if it's something that you don't think I can reasonably take care of them, um, and it is, especially if parents, it is you taking care of them. Yeah, you can say, My kid, you gotta take care of 'em, yada, yada, yada," but it is a child. So ultimately, you're responsible for them. If you don't think you can commit to that, maybe it's time to look at a
Mm.
fish. You
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
But even
And
with fish, you have routine maintenance to the tank. You
Mhm.
have to like make sure like everything is perfect with that as well. So it's not
Sure.
like a leave it and go. It very much is a
Mm-mm.
there's responsibilities to it.
yeah,
Right.
so
No
I
matter what
think
kind of
the
animal.
underlying theme for both of you, the advice is make sure that you go in with knowledge. That should be the first
Hmm.
thing you do before you ever buy a pet, is
Oh
you
yeah.
should understand what it's going to take to care for that pet, and to
Mhm.
do your due diligence and do your research to determine if you want to accept that responsibility, and if your living environment is conducive to accepting that responsibility. um
Exactly.
Very much
uh,
so.
yeah, because if you're gonna have, if you have an apartment, obviously you're not going to be getting a huge Labrador or a Greyhound or something that is just going to be cooped
Mhm.
up the entire time.
I don't know. There's a
Actually,
Great
greyhounds would be
Pyrenees.
great for an apartment.
Really?
Yeah, they're the laziest dogs you will ever meet. You think that like oh, but they're fast and like all they want to do is lay down. They just want to lounge. So they're actually great apartment dogs.
There's a Great
Okay.
Pyrenees that lives a few doors down. I live in an apartment, and I think poor dog. You're so big, and that apartment's not very big, but Luna seems perfectly happy. So.
It is very dependent on the dog.
Mhm.
One thing that I have recommended some people to do, like some of my friends, go find a local shelter or even a rescue and talk with them about the different breeds and work with like the dogs and actually get to experience, or even
Mhm.
cats for that matter, but experience the animal. Get to
Mhm.
learn like, okay, here's like how these animals work. This is how they think. This is how they work. And you can even hear from the people who work with them day to day tell you
Mhm.
like, oh yeah, like okay, that's a German Shepherd. They have to go on walks because otherwise they get hip dysplasia. Like
Mhm.
this is a dog that has to do certain things. And so then
Yeah.
you're like, oh, okay. And you get used to what the standard of care should be. And you can
Mhm.
experience it without purchasing an animal and not giving it the best life possible.
Oh.
Yeah,
And
that's very wise there. My kids were wanting a dog or a cat for a long while, and so what we did, because we weren't financially in a spot to do that, but we
Mhm.
also
Hmm.
wanted our kids to understand the responsibility, and
Mhm.
so my wife started taking my boys during the day to an animal shelter here and volunteering. And so they
Yeah.
were helping out, taking care of the animals, and ultimately they ended up deciding that they did not want that responsibility. So even if
Mhm.
we got to the point where we could financially sustain having a pet, because it is a financial burden,
It
um,
Mhm.
is.
that they ultimately were like, nah,
No
no thanks.
thanks. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Well, and that's the thing. Like one thing people I hate about the reputation of cats is people are like, oh, well, they're independent and they don't need you and they don't
Mm,
care about you and they're apathetic, and that's absolutely not true.
no,
Um,
they
you
need just as
know,
much love.
they need just as much love, just as much human time. I mean, depending on the cat, some of them like they get depressed if they don't have people around them. And
Yeah.
the other thing is like, especially if you have a single cat, which I've had just one cat before. But if you're going to be gone a lot, that's not a good idea because they need
No.
companionship. And
Hmm.
so it's always better to have two if you're not going to be home a lot. So.
Yeah. Most animals, it's if you know that you're not going to be there consistently for long
Mhm.
stretches of time, it is better to have a second animal.
Mhm.
yep, yeah. Oh man, I had a ton of animals growing up, but yeah, you also, I guess that even brings in another discussion topic of how to safely introduce your current animal to a new animal. Because
Slowly.
yeah,
Slowly.
yeah.
It depends on the animal too. I mean,
Yeah.
in you, especially like in my situation, my two cats, one had actually gone to live with my grandma for quite a while, several months. And in the meantime, I had gotten Miko, who is my little orange goblin, which I'm sure he'll make an appearance at some point, because he normally does. But I had gotten him, and he was a feral kitten rescue, and so I had gotten him, and he was only like 5 weeks old. Um, but I had also raised Merlin from a very young age, and I had taken Merlin back, and it was a very hard adjustment for them because they were both used to my undivided attention and they didn't know each other. And,
Hmm.
it was a lot of giving them space from each other while also trying to make them familiarize themselves with each other. Um, bringing out blankets that they had in their individual rooms so that they could get used to each other's smells, because that is one thing about cats. They recognize each other not from looks, but from smell. Um, and so if you
Hmm.
can familiarize them with the smell, um, that's important. Knowing whether or not, if you're gonna bring a cat into a dog house, I'm sure knowing whether or not that dog is gonna react well to a cat would be important. I'm
Yeah.
sure Shannon could say more
Oh
about
yeah.
that one. But
Yeah. It's all about taking it slow and letting both of them adjust at the same time. And
mhm,
sometimes it's being okay, like you got a cat, cool, your cat stays in the bedroom for the next like couple of weeks and the dog can smell the
mhm,
cat through the door. Then you
mhm,
just have a gate between that room and so then they can see each other and sniff each other. And then just
mhm,
slow introductions, having only supervised visitation to
mhm,
okay, they're fine, they can be alone together. But it's also knowing whether or not your animal was brought up around cats. Like there are some
mhm,
dogs, they're great with cats. Why? Because ever since they were a puppy, they've been exposed to them, and so
mhm,
a new cat is not a big deal to them. But there's
mhm,
other animals that have never experienced a cat and are like, what is this? Why did you bring it into my house? And you love me more.
mhm.
So,
Well, and I think also, animals pick up on your body language and your feelings, and
mhm,
if you're scared about an interaction, like, my dog is gonna attack this cat, and so, like, you're
mhm,
super stressed, your dog is
yeah,
gonna pick up on that, and it's only gonna make it more
mhm,
jumpy and excitable and stuff like that. At least in my
yep,
experience, that's what happens, versus if you're calm, cool, and collected, your animal is more
mhm.
likely to be that way.
Oh yeah,
So,
very much. Animals pick up on vibes.
do you have any
Mhm.
recommendations for a pet for someone who wants to be a pet owner but wants a low maintenance pet?
Fish.
Fish.
Fish. I mean, it's not no maintenance. It is very maintenance. But like the maintenance that it is very specific and very calculated maintenance. So just understanding like, okay, cleaning the tank and making sure the pH levels are right and
Mhm,
making sure that its home is safe for it. That is kind of important and you need to pay attention to those details. But you could go on vacation for a week and your fish will be fine. Like
mhm.
for the most part.
Yeah, fish, especially if you're gonna first time fish owner, I would say, like, freshwater fish, don't get a salt tank because
No.
that is a whole 'nother you
Hmm.
it's a whole 'nother thing to try to
Yeah.
maintain a saltwater tank, but, getting a regular goldfish. Don't put it in one of those tiny little tank
Yeah.
things that you see, but it will be happy most places. So,
Yeah. Yep.
All
and it's
right.
not going to be super expensive either.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That means it won't
Yep.
be very expensive to replace when it inevitably dies because you didn't take care of it. I mean, what?
What do you mean? The Spot has always had that spot on his fin. What are you talking about?
Murder what
Like,
murder?
All right, let's go ahead and
Roll that dice.
see where we're going next with this conversation. Double sixes. That
Ooh.
is Charles's favorite segment.
Dad jokes are like Mojo Jojo. They're bad.
All right. I'm going to read a dad joke from our Discord, but you two feel free to pop in with your own dad jokes if you want. Your vet won't tell you this, but if your dog is running a fever, get some mustard. It's the best thing for a hot dog.
I'm pretty sure my dad has said that one.
it sounds about right. It sounds like something my dad would say. Absolutely.
So I posted that in our Discord, and the full run through, aka Tyler, he's been on the show before. His comment to it was that he really relishes jokes like this. And Kurt said, "Let's be frank, Joa is on point."
Oh.
I just sit here and shake my head.
You know, yeah.
Would you like to add some bad dad jokes, or should we roll the dice again?
I say
I
roll
could
the dice
Google 'em.
again.
All right, then let's roll some dice. Ooh,
What are you
13.
nerding about?
so we roll 2 dice so that hopefully we get one that we haven't had already. So, what are you nerding out about? Sarah, what are you nerding out about recently?
Hmm. 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 Uh, everybody's gonna expect me who knows me to say something theater, which is not a lie. Today, the Tony Awards were announced, and
Okay.
that's kind of been my day right now. Um, where there was a bunch of shows. I think they said like 11 shows got knocked out of the Tonys. Like they're not there at all. But
Oh,
the
wow.
one that I am super interested in, and I'm not sure if this is one I would necessarily take the kids to, but is Death Becomes Her. It
Yeah.
got like I think 10 or 11 awards.
Oh
And I think
wow.
that's going to
Oh,
be
wow.
or nominations for awards, but um, that's kind of where I've been geeking out on that and Star Trek. So,
Which Star Trek?
specifically Strange New Worlds.
Okay.
I at Dragon Con, I cast direct and basically oversee Subspace Rhapsody Picture Show, which is the musical episode from season 2, and we are getting ready to close auditions, and so I've been in my little brain like being excited because if you know anything about our show last year, we put in a lot of inside jokes and things that were not in the episode. And I have just so many ideas about what I want to add. And also the new season is coming out here pretty darn quickly, and so I'm excited about that.
I should give that a watch sometime. That's the one with Anson Mountain, correct?
Yes, Anson
Okay.
is in it. They actually came, Anson, Christina Chong, and Ethan Peck all came to our show last year at Dragon Con, and that was
Nice.
really cool. So
That is
I
very
got
cool.
a chance to talk to Anson briefly last year because
very nice
Charles
guy.
did
The well with him,
yes, yeah,
right?
the Well podcast, but Charles wasn't a participant. He was
Hmm.
tech support for him, and he actually used my equipment to record it on. But yeah, so I was up there. Anson had gone off the stage. He had left, and I went up
Hmm.
to help clean up the equipment, and he popped back out and talked to us for about 5 minutes and whatnot. So that was fun.
He's a
That's
very
cool.
nice guy. They were not supposed to come to our show. Um, Long story short, my cast scared me last year. I thought something was wrong, like it's a Klingon having a conniption. And because they were saying, you have to come backstage, you have to come backstage now. Turn the corner into like one of those little hotel like corridors, and the three of them are standing there. And I'm just like, oh, hi. And of course, me being a stage manager, I immediately went into troubleshooting mode because I had nowhere for them to sit. Um, and when it came time to bring them on stage, I was like, "Where are my people?" And Anson's like, "We are your people." Just very nice guy, totally humorous, but good natured. But yeah, I love the guy. I don't know if he's going to come to con though, because him and his wife are getting ready to have a baby apparently. So right
Oh, good
around
for him.
August. So
Yeah.
That's a good reason to miss con.
yeah. Though he said he might still go. Like people were asking him on one of his live streams because he streams a lot live on the Instagram, and he said he might, but he just doesn't know yet.
Okay.
Mm.
All right. Well, Shannon, what are you nerding out about?
What am I not nerding out about? As somebody with a neurospicy brain, the ADHD is right there and constantly going over to this thing and that thing. Recently, I had been diving into classic horror literature, so like Dracula and Frankenstein. I've also been diving into the efficacy of how horror is produced in film and also in media, how the ethics of filming and reporting on it and all that kind of stuff. And David Lynch, and diving into him quite a bit.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
what
And
is
Doctor
your
Who,
favorite?
because there's a new season.
There you go. So with David Lynch, what specifically have you been getting into with his?
Everything. We're actually planning on doing an episode on Earth Station Boo on David Lynch, and so I've been just circling that rabbit hole and just going further and further in, and I'm just like, I love it all. I mean, I was already a fan of Eraserhead and Twin Peaks, but it's just one of those, the more you get to like see the mind of David Lynch, the more interesting it gets.
Mm.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
So for me, I've got two things this past week that I'm nerding out about. The first one is my wife and I recently started the MCU with our boys.
Aww.
So my boys are 5, 10, and 12.
Wow.
They watched the first. Now, I guess some people might argue whether it's MCU or not because it wasn't originally, but now it is. But they watched the first Tobey Maguire Spider-Man.
Okay.
Because my boys just absolutely love everything Spider-Man. So they've watched that, and then this past week we watched Iron Man, and they were
Okay.
really digging Iron Man, and they were my 5-year-old. He kept dancing whenever the rock music would start playing. So there's a ton of rock music in Iron Man, and it was just adorable watching him over there bobbing his head and just getting into it. And yeah, so it was a lot of fun. They are excited to continue along that journey, and it'll be a fun ride because it'll be nice to see their reactions to the various different plot twists and whatnot, and to vicariously experience it all fresh, to see their fresh take on it. So
Yeah.
yeah. The other thing that I'm nerding out about is I finished an audiobook this week called Elantris. It's a book by Brandon Sanderson. I've talked about him a bunch of different times on the show. He's among my favorite authors. Elantris is actually a book that he wrote originally a long time ago. It was one of his early books, and he didn't publish it because it wasn't he couldn't get a handle on it. Like, he had finished it, but he was like, this is not printable. And so he actually went back to it and basically rewrote it from the ground up. And so after he had a bunch of different books published, he went back and was like, okay, let's go back to this. I loved the idea. Let's rework it. And so he rewrote it, and it turned out really well. At its core, it's basically a political intrigue book, with a fair share of supernatural elements. So the city of Elantris is a city that used to be a gorgeous city that was full of magic, and the Elantrians, they were these people. They start off as normal people, but they had this transformation come over them, and they had like silver skin, and they would glow in the dark because they were just full of magic. And this cataclysm happened where, instead of being transformed into these beautiful creatures, they were almost transformed into zombie-esque creatures. Like, not definitely not traditional zombies. And the only reason I even mention zombie is their hearts stop beating. Their skin loses all of its luster and becomes gray with black splotches in it. If they get wounded, it doesn't heal. It hurts forever. So, like, one of the main characters, he goes through this transformation, and one of the first things that happens to him after the transformation is he stubs his toe. He permanently has a stubbed toe at that point. That pain never goes away. And so,
that's not fun.
No. And if you become an Elantrian, if you go through this transformation, you're relegated to this city of Elantris that used to be a beautiful city and now is in decay, covered in slime, and you are trapped there. Like, there's guards up on the walls, you can't leave, and so there's all of the political nuance with the relationship between Elantris and its couple of closest cities near them, and it's pretty awesome. Like, there is some action in it here and there, but at its core, it's all about politics, and I found it very enjoyable. I finished it earlier today, and it was very, very good. So
That sounds cool.
now we've got comments coming in. There's apparently some feedback coming from one of us. So let's see if we can. I'm gonna mute myself, and we'll see if it's on mine. hearing it. Let's see if we can figure out. Nope, I muted Sarah, and it's not coming from there. Shannon is the culprit.
I'm the culprit.
You are.
I wonder what I need to do.
It's an electric buzz, almost
Yeah, like
as if there's a cord.
Oh, my mic is
A
kind of
short.
near a fan, so that might be what it is.
Okay.
Well, it's like it sounds kind of like a short in the like the
Yeah.
electrical kind of.
Yeah, almost as if
Oh.
there's a cord on top of your mic's cord or something like that. Actually, whatever you're doing, it's starting to clear up a little bit. It's still there, but it's not quite as loud. Oh, there you. Whatever you did,
I
that
don't hear it
seems
at
to have
all.
taken care of it.
Okay. I
right.
think it was my AirPod case.
Oh.
Oh.
All right. Well, there we go.
There we go.
So, but yeah, so Elantris, fantastic listen. I listened to the audiobook, but it was a fantastic listen. My only complaint is that the app I use, Libby app, does not have the next 2 books on it. So I will have to figure that out.
Yeah, I just finished a book like literally right before we went live called Light Lark, and there are at least 2 other books, maybe 3. And so but I'm one of those people that I hate spending my audiobook credits. Like I read a lot of physical media, but I also do I have audiobook credits, and I'm like maybe I'll spend it on that. So
There you go.
If
Yeah,
you don't have the app, it's called Libro.fm, and it is a audiobook app where you can purchase the audiobooks, but you can give credit to mom and pop bookstores. So instead of Amazon getting your money, your local bookstore gets the cash.
I've actually heard of Libro FM. It's been a hot minute, and I had forgotten what it was called. But yeah, no, the one I use, Libby app, ties in with local libraries.
The libraries.
So, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So we use our library card to tie into it. This is one of the few instances where I was like, man, I wish I had a Georgia library card, because Georgia, all of their libraries are synchronized through the entire state, whereas
oh wow.
my library card is just one single local library. So
check their website though, Georgia's website, because you might be able to get an online only library card. There's a few different states and libraries that are doing that, where people can get an online one so they can get the audiobooks online.
I'll have to look into that, because then then
I need
theoretically
to go
have a broader catalog to choose
Yeah.
from.
I wanted to get into Libby, but I'm going to be honest, I have to go into the library, and the library is inconvenient for my house, so I have not. I'm a person who just doesn't go on that side of town very often, and I've got to go and show them that I'm a real person so that they'll let me log in again. So,
I can identify all the bridges. I am a real person. Oh man. All right, let's go ahead and
Roll that dice. Roll that dice. Roll that dice.
we have already done both of those. There we go.
Council of Dads.
Or as Charles likes to call it, the Parliament of Papas. So I am going to, well, I'll read it. So it's comes to us from Reddit. Am I the buttface for asking for the dog to be put in another room after being jumped on? So this comes to us from a Redditor called No Dogs Jumping on Me. apt name given the context here.
Yeah.
They say, I went to a party at an acquaintance's house this past weekend with my wife. This is a friend of a friend that I've met a few times. I was invited, but I would not say I know this person that well. They had a German Shepherd that I didn't know about, that as soon
Mhm.
as I opened the door, came out of nowhere and full on jumped on me. Paws on the chest.
Ooh.
I nudged the dog away and told him to get off. I almost got immediately yelled at by the host to not be a jerk to their dog. I was just I was just like, your dog jumped on me. I don't want it jumping on me. I asked if they could put the dog in another room so it doesn't happen again. The host told me absolutely not. This is the dog's house too. I told my wife we're leaving. I told everyone have a good party and noped out of there. My phone's been blowing up from multiple people, and the host reached out saying how I treated his dog was really inappropriate. I'm still hearing about this 4 days later, which is crazy to me. Am I the butt face in this situation?
Mm,
So, what's your take on it?
No, no, but at the same time, the owner has a point. It is the
right.
dog's home, and to lock it up when there's a party going on, it's just going to cause the dog to get more stressed out and anxious and can cause damage to the house. Um,
Hmm.
they should have been better about keeping the dog from jumping on anybody, but it's one of those deals of,
Hmm.
I don't blame you for wanting to leave after being jumped on by a dog and the owner saying, I'm not putting the dog away.
I think I'm of a twofold mind. Okay. If somebody comes into my home, I automatically tell them I have cats. Okay, and I have
Hmm.
one specific cat who is very likely to at least be out. He may not be affectionate to everybody. It's kind of a roll of the dice whether or not he's going to be. But he's not scared of anyone, and he is like a very cool, calm, collected cat, but he's going to be there. So if you don't like cats, don't come into my house. That
Yeah.
being said, my job involves I work with a lot of repair technicians, and um, in general, um, the standard rule is unless the tech's comfortable with the dog being out in order for us to be there, you need to put your dog out of the
Yeah.
way because, you know, of comfort as well as safety, both for the dog and for you as our at both for you and for our technicians. So my opinion is if um, the dog behaved badly. I don't know if this is he got jumped on and like the dog knocked him to the floor. Is this the dog like jumped up on his legs and he's like no down, like where
Yeah.
there wasn't enough context to know like I guess how bad that jump was. It is the dog's house. The owner should have done
Yeah.
a better job of at least preparing people to know what the dog is like. Um, but in the end, demanding something, which the way the Redditor wrote it, it sounded like it was more of
Hmm.
a could have come across as more of a demand than a request.
Yeah.
Um, I think that that's where he is in the wrong because he always can leave, which he ended up doing, but um, you have no right to demand what somebody else does to their during their party to their property and to their pet.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
And there's a lot of dogs that, when somebody first walks in, they get excited. They're like,
mm,
a new person's here. Yay. And so they may have jumped up because they were excited. But in like 5 minutes' time, that dog is not even going to care that you're there.
mhm,
Like, to come in and be like, yo, you need to put your dog away. They just jumped up on me. Yeah, this like one time. But if you go
Mhm.
and you sit down, they're not going to care that you're
Mhm.
here. Like
Mhm.
it was
Yeah.
just like a excited greeting, you know?
Right.
Yeah. Well, and I think we would, in order for me to want to fully weigh in on it, I would need to know a lot more context. Like, what type of
Yeah.
party is this? Like, is it a book club, or is it, loud music and boisterous? Like, what kind of party is this? Is it just like a birthday party, a little small get together of a
Yeah.
lot of people? Um, and obviously, this person, like they said, they're a friend of a friend, don't know the person very well, didn't even know they had a dog. Um, I don't think asking them to put the dog in another room is a horrible ask, especially if you're willing to accept no as the answer, which they did, and then they left. Which, again,
Yeah.
and so I don't think they were being unreasonable, but I also don't think that the owner was being unreasonable either,
Mhm.
because like both of you said, it is the dog's house. The owner said it's the dog's house,
Mhm.
and if it only happened the once, if it wasn't a continual issue, then
Mhm.
yeah, let the dog stay. But I'll be honest, if it was a continual issue, I would put the owner as the jerk, to be honest, because the dog
Yeah.
is gonna, if they're getting overstimulated, if they're jumping up on people the entire time, and it's being
Yeah.
a
Mhm.
major disruption, then yeah, no,
Mhm.
I
Yeah.
I would expect the dog to go elsewhere, because it's causing a disruption.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Mhm.
I yeah, we would have to know a lot more context. But the fact that multiple people are blowing up their phone and saying that he treated the dog badly, it may not have been his intent to treat the dog badly,
Yeah.
but if multiple people are saying that he was in the wrong, I'm guessing that he is intentionally being a bad narrator and not giving us the full truth.
Mhm. Did he
Um,
Yeah.
yell? Did he yell? Did he when he says it, did he nudge? Did he
yeah, was it
Was
like a
potentially
it more like a
kick or
forceful?
push?
Yeah,
shove?
Yeah.
Like those are the kind of things that run through my head. And I'm not saying that the Redditor did it necessarily on purpose. I mean, there are in in a situation where you're surprised, like fight or flight does uh
Mhm.
take place. But then again, I guess I just come from the assumption that I am going to see an animal, and if that's going to be an issue for me, then I normally ask if there's going to be something that is going to trigger me, I guess. Trigger is kind of a weird word to use in this, but I think it's the only one I can think of that will work, where I think the guy got a little surprised, and that's what upset him. I think it was more of the surprise than
yeah.
the actual dog.
I do
Yeah.
respect his decision to remove himself from the situation, instead of
Mhm.
sitting there and being frustrated or
Oh yeah,
exasperating the issue. Especially since it's a friend of a friend. Like, that's,
you
you
don't
don't,
need to be there.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And so
it's not like it's my sister's wedding. you
Yeah.
know.
yeah, yep. So, all right. I think I'm in the category of not the butt face in this one. What do you guys think? What's your final stamp on it?
Can I be undetermined? Because I'm undetermined. I need more information.
Yeah.
Uh,
I
my
honestly, like I actually have read this story, and if you go into the comments, they're still very cold about it all. Like people are going, "Oh, like was the dog like really mean about it?" And he's like, "No, I just don't want them jumping on me." Okay, well, like we need more information. And he's
mhm,
kind of refusing to give more information. So I mean he was even like debating on what the term nudge off meant. And so to me, that says he didn't just like kind of shoo the dog off of him.
Nudge.
To me, that kind of makes it sound like he like shoved the dog off of him, which a
Yeah.
German
So
Shepherd, you're gonna have to do that. But I
I'm
don't know.
looking at
There,
I'm looking at the
there's
comments here, and he was asked about the nudge in and of itself, and this is what he said. Nudge means I got it off me as quick as possible. And then
That sounds like a push to me.
yeah,
he was asked about did he throw down the dog? And all he responded to that was, "Are you trying to make stuff up so that I'm the bad guy?" So he was answering a bunch of different questions, and so that was one of
yeah,
the things that he was saying. He
He's
also,
being defensive.
yeah,
So
yeah,
he said he doesn't know how old the dog was because, again, if it's a puppy, a German Shepherd,
yeah,
even as a puppy, is going to get big pretty quick, and so
yeah.
that,
mhm.
yeah,
It
um,
there's a lot of information we don't have, and like, the fact that so many people are coming at him going, "Hey, you shouldn't have treated the dog like that." To me says there's something else that happened that he's not telling us. So I'm
Mhm.
undecided and
yeah,
or everybody sucks here.
I'm kind
yeah,
of leaning towards yes, he is because he's not only because of the situation, but because how he's responding to it. Like
Yeah.
mhm,
any potential criticism, he's being very defensive and accusing. Like, are you trying to make it out to be something it's not? That's an accusation that makes me
Mhm.
think, well, maybe not, but maybe now I should be because um, normally if people have that reaction, if multiple people, not just the owner, have that reaction, I'm wondering, did he
Yeah.
yell at the dog? Did he push the dog? Did he yell at the guy? Like, was was the request like, hey, do you mind putting your dog up in the bedroom, or you need to put your dog away?
Yeah.
yeah. Well, and
Because
I
those
will
are
say
different.
I did edit the language from the post.
Yeah.
Hmm.
He definitely swore at the dog.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Well, that in and of itself, I'm gonna say yes, he was.
Yeah. I mean,
But
the
I am an
o-
animal person, so
the owner should make sure that the dog isn't jumping on people, and should be in control of their animal. Um, and he didn't have to blow up the way that he blew up. So I'm gonna say everybody's here.
all right,
That'll be my
mm.
final judgment.
okay, all right. Well then, I'm gonna bypass rolling since we've only got two segments left, and we're gonna go ahead and move on to. Oh wait, before we move on, my wife commented here in the chat. If he can say that to a dog, he's a butt face. There we go.
I
I
agree.
agree.
So, we're gonna go ahead and move on to.
Stay tuned for this commercial break.
And so, what I'd like to know is where people can find the two of you. Sarah, where can they find you?
Well, that's a good question. Typically, you can always find me on my theater group, which is Dragon Con Theater and Performing Arts Lovers Unofficial. Taking a little bit of break from doing digital panels, but we are planning on starting back up. This month, we're probably going to be doing our third annual What is Dragon Con's favorite musical, Battle Broadway, which should be a lot of fun. I do theoretically have a podcast of my own called FAMdom and Footlights. We've only released 2 episodes because I don't have time to edit, but, eventually, that will be coming out, and, I will eventually be making another appearance on Earth Station Boo, so
And so,
Yeah.
what
come
you're
find me
saying is
there.
people can get in on the ground floor on your brand new podcast. That's what I'm hearing.
Yes.
Mhm.
Yes, and we talk about all sorts of things, like, the next episode, when it's edited, is actually about Has Been Hotel, so
Ooh.
There you go.
Gonna have to make sure I listen to that one.
And then Shannon, where can they find you?
Personally, they can find me at Spilled Tea Wine Media Mine on all the things. But then you can find my podcast, Earth Station Boo, on all the things at Earth Station Boo. It's a horror podcast, and we literally talk about everything horror. So, from
Mhm.
movies and books to audio dramas, TV shows, and concepts. So, like, how much gore is too much gore, and the different characters and creatures. And we actually just talked about the slasher era. And so, there's not a rock that will be not unturned when it comes to horror.
There you go.
Yeah.
Very nice.
Yeah.
So as far as Wise and Nerdy goes, if you wanted to support the show, you can head on over to patreon.com/wise_n_nerdy. And all of our links you can find at linktree/wise_n_nerdy. Now let's go ahead and move on over to
Personal story time.
And so what I thought is for this personal story time, we're going to have two facets of it. I'd love to hear a fun, entertaining story about one of your pets. And I'd also like to know who your favorite fictional pet is.
Ooh.
So there's a lot of really good fictional pets out there.
There are.
So,
Well, I would say it was not fun at the time, but it is funny to think about now. My cat, Miko, who's my little orange shadow. Okay, he
now,
follows me everywhere.
real quick, you've mentioned Miko before, and I thought of it before, and I didn't ask. Is it named after the raccoon from Pocahontas?
He is. He is. When he was a kitten, he used to steal shiny things. And that is where his name came from was
Valid.
that because Miko used to steal shiny things in Pocahontas. So.
Now, I'm going to interrupt you just briefly one more time. When I was younger, I had a pet raccoon for a few months.
Nice.
It got taken by a game warden, and
Mm.
I wish I could. My parents are both gone. I wish I could ask them for confirmation now that I'm older. But what we were told was that, and again, this might be we sent the dog to the farm. My guess is that our raccoon Rocky was put down, is my guess. But what we were told is that our raccoon was given to Disney to be one of the live animal models, which had some bit of credibility at the time because during that time frame they would have been working on Pocahontas. So if my parents were not sugarcoating it and actually telling the truth, then my raccoon may have been one of the artists, one of the actual live animals that the artist used for Miko.
Oh, that's cool.
That would be
That's
cool.
Awesome.
But anyway, continue.
Yeah.
Tell me about your cat, Miko.
Well, Miko is always follows me around, and he, in typical orange cat fashion, loves food. Okay, so
Mm.
always comes around. If you shake the food container, he's there. So anyway, one morning I was getting up, I was getting ready to go into the office, and Miko wasn't there. I didn't think too much of it at the time, but I go to feed my cats their breakfast, and Miko doesn't come out, which of course my heart like out of my
Yeah.
chest. Immediate worry. Call him, call him, call him. And I was at my living with my mom at the time, and we um my immediate thought was Miko got out, which Miko does not like to leave. He doesn't it's an apartment complex. He does not like to step out into the hall. He has no desire to be a wildcat. Um
Hmm.
he was born as a wildcat, and he's like, "Nope, I'm indoors now, never going back out there again." Um so I go, it's the winter time, so I go knocking on all the my apartment neighbors' doors. It's like 7 a.m. Have you seen an orange cat anywhere? Like, I'm distraught. I go across the street to the dry cleaners thinking maybe he's there. He's not coming out anywhere. So I call out because I am so upset with my cat's gone.
Yeah.
Lay down on the couch. Um, finally fall asleep. Um, and apparently my other cat Merlin went into my mom's den. And he comes out after a little while, and my mom's uh, sitting there in her room, and she can see the den. And all of a sudden, she goes, "Miko, Miko, Miko's here, Miko." He wedged himself behind the. She has these bookcases, and she had a speaker that was on sitting on one of the bookcases, and somehow my very wide cat managed to wedge himself behind the speaker perfectly so that the speaker didn't look like it was out of place, but he was back there, and apparently he thought he was in trouble because he refused to come out, the little
Oh.
stinker. And it's just like I remember, like, like being so distraught at the time, thinking my cat that would never leave the house. Like, I can't carry him out of the house without him throwing a fit and fighting me, would have gotten out. And so it's just like, come on, kitty cat. The only other funny story I have about him is when he was a kitten, somehow he managed to wedge himself under the dresser of my house. And it was like a built-in dresser, and he couldn't get himself out. And that was I don't even remember how I eventually got him out, but somehow he got himself out, and that was again at the time extremely worrying. But eventually, yeah, he's chaos, chaos incarnate.
Oh man, we got a couple of
Um,
comments here from a random kid in the chat. Your raccoon went to the great Disney studio in the sky. Talking about
With
my
Rocket.
yep. My raccoon was named Rocky, actually.
No, but with Rocket Raccoon,
Yep.
from Marvel. Yep.
And then he also says Miko went full Garfield. So I guess to
Oh,
be the house cat.
Yeah, he would love to be Garfield.
Well,
If I would let him, he would be, a 30-pound cat. He loves red sauce and cheese and everything cats aren't supposed to eat. That Garfield loves. I think that's his aspiration. Garfield is his hero.
there you go. All right, Shannon, what do you got
Mm.
for us?
So I had a dog. Her name was Margaret. Um, that was her formal name, was Margaret, but I called her Maggie sometimes because most of the time I called her some slew of pet names that I had for her. Um, she looked like a little stuffed animal. She was the cutest little thing, but she was the biggest diva dog you could ever find. And very much like a diva dog. Um, she would steal my hoodies and like want to wear my hoodies, not just like steal them to like go curl up. No, like she would bury herself in there to like where she was like almost wearing it. Um, but I think one of the funniest things she ever did, and it was not a habit that I could break her of, was when she wanted me to get up, she
Mhm.
would get up onto the pillow next to me, which she usually slept with me, which was not a big deal. But she would get on the pillow next to me and do the gargoyle, so like the creepy, like just sit there and stare at you kind of thing. And
Mhm.
then if that didn't wake me up, she would smack me in the face with her paw. I mean, full on like whack. Um, and so that would earn her a timeout snuggle. So I would just wrap her up and just snuggle her for a few minutes before finally getting up and doing whatever she wanted. But she was she was a funny little dog. Absolutely hilarious, very much a diva.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, as far as my favorite fictional pet, um, Wishbone.
Okay.
100% Wishbone.
That's a good
Wishbone,
one.
yeah. I
That's a
was
very
just
good
telling
one.
Oh,
somebody about Wishbone the other day.
oh,
I mean,
turn
Um,
me,
you being a theater
turn
person,
me
that
into.
makes a ton of sense.
right?
Yeah, but he was also a lover of books, and
Right?
I'm a huge book person, and like, um, how they got this little. I think it was a Jack Russell Terrier.
He was. He was.
Yeah.
John agrees with you. He's all about Wishbone.
I mean, come on.
Um.
Wishbone also gave us Jensen Ackles. There
He
was
I
an
didn't
did.
realize
episode with
Jensen
him in it.
Ackles was in that.
Yeah, he was in
Okay.
an episode. Um, that was the first time I had seen him. And I think he was only in like the one episode. But I
Mhm.
saw like some other thing later on with him in it. I'm like, I know that guy from somewhere. Where do I know him from? Checked up IMDb and I'm like, Wishbone, of course,
Mhm.
because I watched that religiously. So
And the second one would be oh uh Binks from Hocus Pocus. So
Okay.
yeah, you stole my answer.
I'm sorry.
Well, you could go with what's the cat from Sabrina the Teenage Witch?
Salem.
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 Yeah,
Yeah.
Salem. You can't go wrong
Salem
with Salem.
Saberhagen, but he wasn't actually a cat. He was a
He
person
was a
who was turned into a
familiar.
cat.
That show still has me occasionally calling Friday Fridya instead because Salem tried to petition to have Friday changed to the name changed to Fridya in one of the episodes.
Mhm.
Yep.
See, when
But
I was
there's
thinking,
so many.
yeah, I was like, Toothless would be awesome to have from How to
Yeah.
Train Your Dragon.
Stitch.
Stitch, yeah. I
Stitch.
mean, post rehabilitation Stitch, of course.
I mean, come on. You know you like that little chaotic blue guy.
I thought of Lockjaw from the Inhumans. Having a
Yeah.
teleporting dog would be pretty fun. I mean, he'd be an escape artist. You couldn't keep him anywhere, but
Yeah. You gotta
um,
find a way to curb that somehow.
Mm-hmm.
and then when Shannon mentioned her pet hovering like a gargoyle, it made me think of Bronx from Gargoyles.
Oh
Oh,
yeah.
I think all
Oh.
three of those would be fun to have as pets.
I mean, there's just so many fun animals that are in media. It makes it hard.
mhm.
So what do you have any thoughts, Shannon, on who you would take? Like you said, there's a ton.
There is. There is so many. Um, and of course it's like, where do I start? And then there also comes a point of what constitutes a pet? Is it just animals?
Or can I pick
Or
Chewbacca?
or
Chewbacca
I
would
mean,
not like being called a pet. You
I
know,
think I think with the fact that there's a whole
speaking
Wookiee
of the Orange
civilization,
Goblin,
they're not pets.
you can probably hear him right now.
But I was thinking like K9 from Doctor Who could be like
Mhm.
a pet. Then if you want to go onto like the horror side of things, is thing from the Addams Family considered a pet? Because he's not quite human, but he's not
I don't.
Do they
an
I don't know
animal.
what things
do they refer to him
backstory
Yeah.
is.
as a cousin, or is that just it that they refer to as a cousin?
Just
It.
it.
Okay.
Between those two,
I kind of
it is the
always
cousin.
saw thing as kind of like a family familiar.
Yeah.
Mm. Oh, that
So
could be
that
a
would
good
that
discussion
could
to
be
have
similar
at
to
some
like
point.
Salem.
Are familiars considered pets?
There we go. Oh, look at the little orange guy.
Oh,
Hi, I'm Miko.
hi, Miko.
I was being a pain, so Mom would pick me up.
That's okay. Miko just needed snuggles.
Now he's trying to.
So
He's
I
like,
did
I
share
want down.
briefly about my pet raccoon, but I would be remiss talking about pets and not talk about my pet bobcat that I had as a kid.
Oh, there you go.
Where did you grow up?
Florida.
Washington State.
Oh.
Okay.
So and I've mentioned on the podcast before, and I can't remember what all I've shared, but at the time I was 7 or 8. It was about we had the raccoon and the bobcat at the same time, actually, and they didn't care about the bobcat. They just cared about the raccoon when they came and took our raccoon away. So
It's the squirrel all over again.
yeah.
Poor
No.
squirrel.
So
I don't remember what its name was, but I remember seeing it on the news.
Peanut? Was it Peanut the squirrel?
Peanut. Yeah, I
Yeah.
think it was Peanut.
But yeah, so about 7 years old, my dad owned an automotive shop, and one of our customers came in with a bobcat on a leash. And so my dad talked to him, asked where they got it and everything, and decided we had to have one. And so we contacted these breeders that lived in Montana. They bred bobcats and they bred lynx. And so we drove the however many hours it was to get there from where we lived. Montana, it had to have been 16 or 17 hours. And so we drove there. We bought our bobcat, drove home, and we had our bob. It was very young. It was still to the point where we had to bottle feed it because it was young. Yeah, it was pretty adorable bottle feeding our little bobcat. And it was awesome. My dad built this giant cage in our backyard that connected to two corners of our house, and it was as tall. It went up to our roof, and so it was big enough that our whole family could go in the cage. So it's not like this tiny cage.
Mm-hmm.
It had one of those dog igloos in there with hay in it. It had a pond in there. Had a giant litter box that we had a tree there. Like it had all kinds of like it was awesome.
It was set up.
Yeah, half of it was covered to keep him out of the elements if he chose, and it was also connected to two windows in the house: our living room window and my bedroom window, and so we could let him in through that, or there was a door on the outside as well.
So you're saying it was a catio?
Yeah. And so there were so many different instances. Like we couldn't let him in during Christmas time into the living room because he would tackle our Christmas tree. He did it multiple times before. Like, yeah, we can't let you into the living room for Christmas. And we learned very quickly, do not try to pet him or touch him while he's eating. He was very, very protective. I guess he assumed we were trying to take his food or something, but he would nip and bite at you if you even just tried to pet him while he was eating. So don't mess with him while he's eating. He was very singular focused.
I mean,
Ironically,
do you really want somebody petting you while you eat?
I mean, fair.
I would
Um,
probably whack you away too. Just saying.
yep.
Yeah.
Ironically, I wasn't even the only kid in my elementary school that had a pet bobcat.
Hmm.
There was someone else who I don't I don't know why his parents thought this was a good idea, but he brought his bobcat in for show and tell. The school quickly
Hmm.
made a no bringing animals to school for show and tell policy after that, but he brought his bobcat in for show and tell. Him and I ended up on the same soccer team, which when we first joined the soccer team was the Golden Eagles, and then they changed it to the Bobcats because my friend would bring his bobcat on the sidelines. We did not bring ours, but they brought their bobcat to on the sidelines, and so it was a ton of fun. Um, we the same customers that my dad had that had bobcats had gotten some kittens, so they at that point I think
Mm.
had 3 bobcats. They were
Oh
going out of
wow.
town and asked us to babysit their kittens, the bobcat kittens, and we're like, okay. So we brought them home, and our bobcat treated them as if they were his own. Like he absolutely loved them, watched after
Aw.
them. It was adorable, and it was so adorable. My dad was like, okay, well, we should get a kitten, like a normal kitten, because we weren't going to drive back to Montana to get another bobcat. So we got another kitten. That did not go well. He tried to kill that kitten like almost immediately. So we ended up
Aw.
rehoming the kitten. But we talked earlier in the show about um, introducing pets to existing pets, and sometimes
Yeah.
there's just complete incompatibilities. It happens,
Mhm.
Yes.
um, especially when
Happens
there's
with us
different.
humans.
Yeah,
Oh.
especially when there's different species involved. And
Mhm.
so it was a very unique experience that I can look back on fondly. As an adult, I'm like, what was my dad thinking? But as a kid, I was like, this is great. This is fun. Um, our bobcat did get loose once.
Ooh.
We had 8-foot fences, and it in one jump up over the fence.
Hmm.
It ended up going to the neighboring town before it was picked up by animal control, and he had apparently killed someone's pet goose.
Oh.
Um, so we were very
Was it a
sad about
Canadian
that.
goose?
I don't know. Um, and I understandably so, animal control did not want to give us back our bobcat. But he fully collared, had tags. They called us, and we ended up getting our bobcat back. He never got loose again, but yeah, um, it was a fun experience. There was one time when we went on a road trip to visit my dad's family. Now,
Hmm.
remember,
Mhm.
I said we lived in Washington State. My dad's family lived in Pennsylvania. We brought our
Okay.
bobcat with
Cross
us
country.
in the car that entire way. Um, yeah, so we're
Which part
we're
of
packed
PA?
just outside of Philadelphia,
Oh,
and
okay.
Huh.
so yeah, it was an interesting car trip, and our Bobcat actually handled it pretty well. And we made sure to stop at rest stops and walk him around on his leash and whatnot and everything. Make sure he had plenty of time to stretch his legs. Um, and my cousins were just enamored with the fact that we had a bobcat that we had brought and everything. Yeah, it was fun. That was definitely the most exotic animal I had growing up. Because well, you
Yeah.
don't really beat something that you would find at a zoo. But
Mhm.
yeah,
Yeah.
so
There you
I
go.
fun
I
times.
I would say I have definitely heard of people like finding bobcat kittens. I live in Iowa. So bobcats aren't common, but they are around.
Yeah.
And they'll find a bobcat kitten, think they're adopting an actual kitten, until it starts to grow up. And
Uh-huh.
there are really strict rules. You can't keep them, but you can send them to like wildlife refuges and stuff like that if
Yeah.
they can't be turned loose.
Yeah.
But
Shortly after, so we ended up moving from Washington to Pennsylvania, and
mhm,
because we knew we were severely downsizing on yard space and everything, we ended up rehoming our bobcat to someone else who had another bobcat um,
mhm.
before we left, and um, my brain just lost where I was going with that. But it was just a ton of fun to have
Mhm.
it. But the biggest thing I would say when looking at it is the paws. The paws on a
Hmm.
bobcat compared to paws on a regular cat, they're
Mhm. They're
huge. That's the
huge.
They're
huge indicator.
massive.
Um, oh, I remember where I was going with that. It's back. Shortly after we left the city that we were at, because a decent amount of people had pet bobcats, they actually passed a city ordinance that you had to have a permit to have a bobcat as a pet.
Okay.
Mm.
Um, so yeah, yeah, it. They were becoming decently popular. So yeah,
Yeah.
it was
There you
fun
go.
times.
Would you recommend somebody let their kid have a bobcat as a pet?
No. No, it was fun for us. I used to wrestle with him. My
Mhm.
Like I said, we learned very quickly not to mess with him while he was eating, mostly
Mhm.
because my dad did that and ended up needing stitches in his hand from getting bit.
Yeah.
So luckily it was my dad and not a kid, because that could have been way worse.
Oh,
um,
Mhm.
yeah.
but yeah, no, I do not recommend going into it with, especially with the limited knowledge that we had at the time, on because this was before the internet was that big. We didn't have the internet at home like a lot of people didn't, and so we didn't.
Mhm.
It's a cat. We treated it as a big cat, and
Hmm.
in a lot of ways, he actually had more mannerisms of a dog. It was like a dog mixed with a cat as far as the mannerisms went.
Mhm.
But one of the one of the weird things that I still don't understand is he absolutely loved to crawl up on you and just lick your hair. I And he had like sandpaper texture almost with the of his tongue, and so I don't know, he liked to climb up
It's the
on your
sweat.
shoulders and lick your hair. Oh, is that what it is?
It's the
Could be,
sweat.
yeah.
It's the salt in your sweat.
Mm.
Um, a lot of like the bigger cats like to like lick salty things. It's kind of like
Mhm.
almost like a soothing kind of thing to them, and yeah.
Yeah, my dad would sometimes bring him to work with him and just have him in the office, because I mean my dad owned the business, and so
Yeah.
people would walk in and
Well,
there'd
I
be
mean, you
a
can't argue
bobcat
with the
just
boss.
sitting on the counter.
I would say the most common exotic pet, other than maybe a raccoon, is a skunk where I live, and
Mm,
that's a big no for me. Thank you.
yeah, a
I
lot
live
of
in Florida,
people don't they?
so
Yeah, there's all kinds of pets there.
I
With
live in
this
the same area as Tiger King. So let's just put it that way.
with a skunk, a lot of people have the gland removed, that lets them spray, don't they?
Yeah, or they're kind of bred to not have it, from what I understand, though.
Oh, I didn't
Mm.
know
Um,
that was possible.
But they can have a nasty temperament.
yeah,
So
they're not nice animals to deal with.
they're more extreme than
So,
cats when it comes to the sassiness.
mhm.
Okay, man.
Yeah.
But I
Yeah.
mean, the moral of the story is, if you see a random cat on the side of the street, you don't necessarily want to bring it home, because it might not be a normal kitten. And with that,
No, see, I'm the type who will be like kitty to a tiger. So
Yeah.
Or
Yeah,
the-
I unfortunately am that white woman who's like, but it's cute and fluffy.
I want
Why
to cuddle it.
why friend shape if not friend?
Yep.
No fear.
All right. Well, I think with that, we're going to go ahead and call it a night. Have a good one, everyone.
Toodles.
Bye.
Follow these nerdy dads on social media. Charles at Rock God of Podcasting, Joe at Joseph_Ard. Check out the website, wiseandnerdy.com. And as always, they may not be your father, but they'll always be your daddy.
It's not the first time, won't be the last time I'm called daddy. Oh.